Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Lazio Lounge. I'm Vittorio Campanile, with me Alistair McKenzie. Hello Alistair. At the end we can say it was a surprise but very good weekend.
Absolutely brilliant weekend. The way things were going, I don't think we expected this to turn out to be as big a game as it was, but having Fiorentina and Torino help us out in the way that they did, and suddenly it's amazing how quickly things can change, really, because I don't know about you, I certainly wasn't expecting both Inter and Roma to lose this weekend, and now we're back up in third place, and yeah, the whole outlook of Serie A has changed from this moment onwards. So delighted to get 3 points and avoid suspensions to players who are in danger of missing out on the derby as well. I think everything's gone pretty well actually in the end.
Yeah, it was a surprising weekend. I was already surprised that Roma drew against Bologna last Saturday, but losing at home against Fiorentina, that was another nice surprise. And then obviously Inter losing against Torino today, another surprise, unattended 3 points for Torino. And it was funny because Napoli at the 89th minute was losing, so it looks like Juventus could have won the Scudetto pretty much this weekend. So it was a bizarre weekend, but I think lesson number one is, in this moment where every European match is fundamental, you see that teams that play in Europe lose energy, lose confidence, lose mental energy as well. You could see that Juventus struggle against Benevento, and they changed nine men. Roma did pretty much the same. And today, we have to be honest, it wasn't the best Lazio of the season after excellent performance last Thursday. So, it's good to get the 3 points.
Yeah, really good. There are definitely aspects of the performance that can be criticised, and I think probably should be by us tonight. But, to be able to do what Inter and Roma were incapable of doing this weekend, and play badly and have an eye on Europe, like you say, and still manage to find a way, and particularly managed to find a way having gone a goal down so early on. The way we started the match tonight, to be honest, it didn't surprise me when I looked at the starting lineup, but Lazio were so open at the back, and I think if we were playing a more dangerous team, or at least a team with more confidence than one that's just set a record amount of defeats in a row, it could have been a lot different tonight. I think we got a bit lucky in terms of the players we were up against, and who clearly didn't have much confidence, because on another day we would have been punished more severely for the way we started that game. But I think the response was good, and also I'd say that the way that Lazio managed the game once they were in front was really impressive as well, because with an eye on Thursday and the journey that's coming up as well, I think we managed to lower the tempo in a way that the team, I think, will be fresher as a result of the way they managed to dictate the game after they took the lead.
I thought that Lazio struggled in the first 15 minutes, most because, and we're going to talk about this, I already know, starting with Milinkovic-Savic, Luis Alberto, Felipe Anderson and Immobile, it's completely different organization in the midfield. And I thought in the first 15 minutes they weren't organized. The Lazio wasn't unable to play football, and they were not able to press. At the same time, they weren't very well organized to defend. So Udinese in the first 10 minutes shot on target at least 4 times. Luckily, they didn't create incredible chances. They didn't finish them well. But you can see that Lazio was really, really struggling. Then after the goal, something changed. They found the right balance. Luis Alberto and Felipe Anderson in particular. And it became dangerous. One thing that I agree with what Inzaghi said yesterday is playing against Udinese now for me it's very dangerous, as Inzaghi said, because they had 7 defeats in a row, and they're looking to they're going to give everything to stop this terrible form, and I thought they did. I thought they did, and in the last 10 minutes when Lazio was really, really knackered, I thought Udinese had a couple of good chances. So it wasn't that easy, but yeah, I was surprised from the starting 11, especially because Inzaghi said that Milinkovic, Luis Alberto, and Felipe Anderson cannot play together. Instead, they were there.
Well, yeah, that's exactly what I tweeted when I first saw the lineup, was that how can a guy who's said as recently as in the last 2 weeks that it's impossible to use all these players in the same team because there's no balance, then turn around a couple of weeks later and put them all in the same team? So I was expecting, I said at the time, that this is going to be an open game because of that. I mean, there was no way the game wouldn't be open if you put that many players on the pitch at the same time. And I think, actually, the second half of the first half, if you like, the team did, I think, find quite a good balance. And like you said, Luis Alberto and Anderson together were causing a lot of problems. I thought Marisic was causing a lot of problems down the right-hand side as well. So I don't think, coming away from today, we can say that it's a system that's impossible to use, but I think it's clear that it would need work done a lot more because there were so many gaping holes in that defence, and I felt a bit sorry for Lucas Leiva, who seemed to be the only man who's really had any intention of covering the space behind the midfield.
Yes, one thing is, I think Lazio can play like this, but you have to have Milinkovic-Savic at top level. And again, today, we said already Thursday, I thought today he played really poorly again.
Yeah.
He made so many mistakes. And the problem is, he's that type of player who don't want to make easy things. He's always looking for the thing that can change the match, the incredible pass, the skill, etc. And when you're not in great shape, not in your best performance, then you look really badly, and that's what happened today. So this didn't help Simone Inzaghi decision. And another thing, Inzaghi said yesterday in the presser that Milinkovic needs to play to recover his top form, which I can understand. But, and I want your opinion on that, I think there are some key matches that the result is too important to, risk with players that need to get back to their top form.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was thinking basically after the first half that looking at this team now, when it comes to the derby next weekend, I wouldn't put Milinkovic-Savic in that team because I like the way that Alberto can threaten from that deeper role, and the way that he was linking up with Anderson and Immobile in front of him. And I think in terms of picking on form, you have to go with those three and put Parolo back in the side in the place of Milinkovic-Savic for me at the moment. Because, I mean, I don't want to criticise him too heavily because he set such high standards for himself at the start of the season. He was absolutely brilliant, but you have to remember that he is, coming back. Like you said, he's had some fitness problems. So I don't want to be too hard on him, but today he really was quite noticeably off the pace. Gave the ball away in midfield far too many times. And I don't know, I mean, even at the end, I was absolutely sure that Yankto had equalised late on with a header. And I just thought, even defensively, Milinkovic-Savic, if there's one thing he needs to be doing, it's winning headers, because he's about our only player who can do that. He wasn't impressive today, and in my opinion, don't know if you agree, for the derby, I would probably have him on the bench and maybe look to have an impact off the bench later on in that game if he's needed.
Yes, and you brought out, I agree with you, there are like today was a key match because you win, you are third. Same point with the Roma, 1 point above Inter. It was fundamental, like it's going to be fundamental next Sunday. Is it worth the risk, losing 3 points to bring up Milinkovic Savic up to speed? You can bring him in the second half and see how things go. But you brought up another thing very interesting that I wanted to talk about, and this cross Udinese made in the second half. I thought, and I saw it a couple of times, De Vrij completely going wrong. He missed the header and allowing Udinese striker to hit with a header in a very good position. Then he turns and blames Felipe Ramos, let's call it Ramos. But I saw a couple of times that completely De Vrij missed the ball with the head. And he should be, one of his top skills is that one, right? He should be very good with the header. So this is something you have to be aware of because that has happened often, that De Vrij is in the wrong position when these long balls come in the box.
Yeah, I think generally that's where we're really vulnerable, and I'm surprised in a way that more teams haven't taken advantage of that, or at least haven't, targeted that aspect of the Lazio defence. And I think perhaps it's because of the way the team's set up with the back three is that there seems to be a bit of uncertainty about who's covering what space quite often. And there are quite a few goals that we've reviewed and analysed that have been conceded this season have been as a result of a kind of mix-up or bad marking and bad positioning. And I think that those crosses like Udinese put in today, they do cause problems. Now, I think De Vrij actually had a pretty good game today.
Yes, but he misses those 2 chances that in the end were the only 2 chances Udinese had in the second half.
Yeah, so I mean that is, I mean it's definitely a problem because a guy of his size as well, and the guy who's playing in the middle of that three has to be someone who's dominant in the air. Because if he's being beaten in the air, if he's being found in the wrong place, it's only a matter of time before that's going to be punished. So, but then again, there's no alternative really. I mean, he's still definitely the best option in that position. So I think I wouldn't say he's always been like that as well. I think it's a part of his game that needs improved, but I don't really know what can be done at this late stage, I suppose.
Before going to reply to the answers on Twitter, I thought Bastos was a surprise today. I didn't expect to see him playing. I was thinking Cáceres could play today, but he played really well. I thought it was maybe his best performance this year from Bastos. I thought he was really good.
Yeah, well, one of the first things, kind of post-match comments as they came up was the fact that Inzaghi went straight up to him after the game and was complimenting him, telling him that he'd had a really good game and he was really focused. And I'd agree with that. Yeah, I think the only criticism would perhaps be for the actual goal where he's allowed Lasagna to get in front of him. But at the same time, I think the rest of the game he was his usual self, really. But when he plays like that and he uses his physicality well, he can be very dominant. And I think the Udinese forwards actually found it quite hard to find a way around him today. And he didn't make any ridiculous, stupid mistakes. So that's always a bonus.
Yeah, and again, Ramos, he's improving match after match.
Yeah, he was great.
Yeah.
We were complimenting him on Thursday for his timing in the tackle, and today again made me think of that conversation because just some of his tackles were just so calm and really well judged.
I think his style, right? He likes doing it.
Yeah, he loves it. And you made the Nesta comparison on Thursday. And I think it is that kind of, you see that in him in terms of the enjoyment of the art of defending. He does it with a kind of elegance. He's not a physical, a bully of a defender. He's more someone who knows when to do what,
Yeah.
and to do it in the right way. And he makes it all look very elegant, and the art of defending is back.
Yeah, let's hope so, because he's young, he's doing really, really well. Before going to the question, I'm going to help you. You have a stat to say, right? Otherwise, you're going to forget like last Sunday. Go for
You're
it.
right. I'd almost forgotten already, actually. So.
I'm here to help.
Well, yeah, I mean, you say I've got a stat to say. I think you'd seen the same stat, so I don't think I can claim this one. But yeah, it was through Opta anyway. But it's the first time now that Lazio have won 10 away games in a single Serie A season. So that's a phenomenally impressive record, really. It would be impressive before the end of the season, but the fact that it's the start of April and we've got won 10 away games is amazing. I mean, if only we'd made the Olimpico a fortress this season and could say the same thing about the home form, then we'd be even more comfortable than we are. But it's always a big problem. I mean, not always a big problem, but it's usually something that big teams have to get right, is how to play well on the road. And that's never really been an issue for us this season. It's always been quite a comfortable thing.
Okay, good. Now I'm going to have my job to remind you all the time the stats, okay? Let's go on Twitter. Walt thought we were very lucky at times. Taking big players off so early is going to cost us some points. Could have been today. Still a solid 3 points. Alistair, you want to reply?
I thought Inzaghi was put in a pretty difficult predicament today because, well, number one, the players he took off, Alberto and Immobile, were both a yellow card away from missing the derby. If you've got half an hour left in the game, do you take them off and know that they'll be playing but risk giving up the kind of balance and the fluidity the team had, or do you keep them on and risk losing them for the Rome derby? I think he made the right decision. I also think it was clear that the team did actually lose its rhythm once those two players went off. But in the end, we came away with 3 points. Those two guys have got a bit more rest, and they are still going to be available for the weekend. So I think it would have been confusing if anyone was unaware of the fact that they were that close to a suspension. But I think given that they were, we need these guys for the Rome derby. So I think it was the right call, to be honest.
I totally agree, and I added that Lulic had a problem in the first half, so that's why he has been sub. He was struggling since the beginning of the match. In fact, there has been the chance that Patrick or Basta could come in the first half. It's strange because...
Why not Lukaku?
I don't know, but the strange thing is Casado was warming up. At a certain point, I think it was around the 15th minute, so when Lazio was down 1-0, and Lulic was still not feeling well, and two players were warming up, Patrick and Casado.
I really wish he'd put Casado on at left wing back.
Well, my only idea would have been Felipe Anderson on the left instead of Lulic, and Luis Alberto playing behind, like still midfield, and Casado behind Mobile.
That would have been crazy, considering how attack-minded that team already was.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anderson at left wing, but yeah, I mean, I thought when I saw that change, first of all, I think there was something clearly a problem with Lulic. He didn't look right from the start to the half time. I thought he looked really tired, but obviously there was something else wrong with him. But I think it says a lot about Patrick, actually, the fact that there was Basta and Lukaku on the bench who started the season as the first choice wing-backs, and he's now getting on in front of both of them. I think perhaps Lukaku wasn't chosen as a result of him being quite an attack-minded player. And like I said, there's already a lot of attacking players there. But
I think he wasn't fit enough to risk him for 75 minutes.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, he's forced himself into contention really for these games now, and it's good to see him rewarded for reliable performances that he's given recently.
Yeah, Yeah. Again, he wasn't great tonight, but you know, he gives everything every time. So you know that's good to see when you put in a sub that he comes in and plays so well. Andy Lando, time for a couple hours sleeps and then our flight. Look forward to listen then. Very thug run home. 6 teams are competing to play in Europe. Massive derby coming up. 3 points and we give ourselves a buffer and relieve some pressure. And how many times we give the ball away in the middle of the park today? Crazy. Yeah, I thought, you know, Lazio didn't play the best match tonight. I thought the problem with the midfield was that there were a lot of different players and, you know, Luis Alberto playing in a different position and so on. I thought that created confusion in midfield. And that's one of the reasons why Lazio didn't play that well.
Yeah, it was noticeable, the fact that we were surrendering possession too easily in the middle. I mean, I think a lot of that was Milinkovic-Savic, though. He seemed to be playing the game at a different pace to everyone else, and he seemed to constantly think he had more time on the ball than he actually did. So yeah, but we've already kind of covered his performance, I suppose. But yeah, that was a disappointment. But like you say, it was a new lineup, so perhaps that's a contributing factor as well.
Yeah, another thing, especially in the first half, when Felipe Anderson got on the left side instead of playing in the central, I thought Lazio was far more dangerous. On the central, they can stop him with more players. You know, there's the central defender, there's one of the 2 central midfielder that can mark him. Instead, when he slide on the left, the defense have less option because there's already another player, this time Marusic there. So Lazio can create an advantage there, and it's where the first goal arrives. So I don't know if you agree, but maybe that's the position better for Felipe Anderson in this type of matches.
Well, I just quite like the idea of the fact of all of those guys kind of moving around and stretching the defence as much as they can. I don't think it needs to be a rigid system where Alberto lines up on the left of midfield 3. I think he's capable of switching wings and Anderson doing the same thing and just giving the opposition defence a lot to think about. I think that's when we've created the most chances this season, is when we've had that kind of fluidity in the forward line where everybody's effectively moving around, not doing their own thing, but in a way to actually stretch the defence and cause confusion. And, I mean, talk about Milinkovic-Savic, he had close attention on him today. I think he struggled with the fact that there was pressure always on him whenever he had the ball. But there are so many players in that Lazio midfield that opposition coaches will have to try and, target or find a way of nullifying that. If we can actually get all these guys to play in a kind of interchangeable positional system, then that's going to cause chaos.
Absolutely. And this is something that Lazio was doing more at the beginning of the season, and recently Inzaghi is picking it up again. But in the central of the season, I don't want to say he forgot about this option, but he didn't do it that much. And I don't know if this is the reason why Lazio had that drop, but I think moving around pieces, especially quality pieces like Milinkovic-Savic, Felipe Anderson, and Luis Alberto, can create a lot of problems to the other team. We have Nigel Gunn on Facebook. Would you say that this is the greatest Lazio ever in all our 118 years of history in terms of total goals scored, individual goal tally, and points so far? No. I wouldn't. I still think that the Lazio that won the Scudetto 18 years ago was the best, or one of the best. I think, and maybe the guys that are listening can tell us what you think. But of the starting 11, I honestly don't know how many would be starting in the Lazio of the last Scudetto. Yeah,
that's true. And I would also say that you can sometimes football now is so overanalyzed that you can read too much into these statistics sometimes, and it's worth remembering that particularly in Serie A, things have changed a lot in the last decade or so, and scoring 27 goals for Immobile in 2018 compared to, say, Beppe Signori, who scored a similar amount in the mid-90s, I think that's actually a more impressive feat, is what Signori managed, because that was at a time when far fewer goals were being conceded, and Serie A was far more of the Italian stereotype of football, which is the more defence-minded, and the very top strikers in the world were struggling to get double figures in the league at that time. So I think that's probably contributed to the amount of statistical records that have been broken this season. I mean, this is definitely a very impressive season, don't get me wrong, but it's certainly not comparable in my mind to either of the teams that have actually managed to win the league.
I totally agree, and I say, would you put Milinkovic-Savic instead of Stankovic, Veron, Almeida, or Simeone? No, not yet, at least. And De Vrij instead of Nesta or Mihajlovic? No, not yet. Immobile, Salas.
Bastos, yeah.
Patrick.
Caicedo and Bastos.
Yeah. They're all good players, No, don't get me wrong. But there we had, Veron was probably the best midfielder ever, so in that time. So, and the fact that Manchester United bought him 2 years later is just an example, So
it's a point worth raising, though, because every week now, basically, every time Lazio score a goal or Ciro Immobile scores a goal or we win a game, it tends to be breaking some sort of long-standing record, because how it works is that once you reach any record, as you improve on your performance over the season, it just keeps getting better and better. But I don't think that's, I don't think it's worth getting carried away yet. We need to actually achieve something this season. I mean, it makes me think a little bit of, this is a bit of a tangent, but I'm a big fan of the Scotland rugby team. And recently we've actually started being quite good. And because of that, every game we win tends to break some long-standing record. But the fact was we were just crap for so long that it kind of hasn't been very difficult to break all these records. It's a bit different to Lazio, but it's similar in terms of the fact that now we've got Ciro, who's scoring so many goals, and a team that's, on par with the Scudetto team in terms of points. It's not necessarily the same achievement.
No, I totally agree. And let's not forget that, Benevento didn't even start the season, and they're allowing 4 goals per match. 10, 15 years ago, you wouldn't. The last team of Serie A would make you fight for winning a match. Now instead it's far too easy. So, and there's a huge gap between the top 5 in Serie A and the other team. So I think that's something you have to consider when you talk about this thing. Still, I think this is the best Lazio of the Lotito era.
Yeah, and that was something we discussed a bit on Thursday about whether Inzaghi was the best coach. But I think that's that's a more reasonable statement to make, I would say. I mean, also Serie A has gone from 18 to 20 teams, so there's more games.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different factors at play.
Walid Mohamed, finally we take the advantage and win when the other lost. Savic was nearly invisible today. Do you think he's distracted? On the other hand, Maruzic had maybe the best game of the season. Well, we talked about Savic already. I think that's enough. But I don't think he's distracted by rumors of transfer market. There's an article on delaziali.com talking about of an interview of Milinkovic-Savic in which he says that he's not thinking about the transfer market, and he hints that there's a chance that he knows that he won't be sell this summer. He will stay at Lazio. We're gonna see, but I don't think that. He just have to get back to form. And Maruzic, I don't think he had the best game of the season. I thought at the beginning of the season he was playing much better, but we saw improvement today. I don't know, Alistair, if you saw it like I did.
Yeah, definitely. I said something similar at the start of the show, just that I thought as an attacking outlet he was really useful throughout the game, beating his defender. I wouldn't quite go as far as to say his best performance of the season, but at the same time I can't think of any individual game right now which is better. But yeah, definitely improvement, and he's a guy who has struggled a bit for form along with a lot of other players since the turn of the year, but that was much more like it today. I think he's a player we're going to rely on a lot between now and the end of the season. We've talked at length before about the importance of the wing backs, so that was really encouraging today.
Yes, I think he's going to be. His position is really useful because we see that Inzaghi has to change often those players. I thought against Chievo, for example, I thought he scored against Chievo. I don't remember if I'm wrong. Had a very good performance. Again, I think it's very similar to Milinkovic-Savic's situation. He had a long injury, and now he's struggling a little bit to find his condition. But he's going to be fundamental, and this is where I see the most problems for Inzaghi in the next match. Basta didn't convince me. Maruzic is trying to find his form. Lulic, now we don't know if he won't be able to play on Thursday. Lukaku, it's struggling with his knee. And Patrick is a good replacement, but he's not a starter, especially in the Champions League competition or things like that.
Yeah, well, I think there was a question that came in about whether this team's actually Champions League quality or not, and I think in order for it to become Champions League quality, that's certainly this part of the team that has to be improved the most.
Yeah, Etano wrote it on Twitter. Again, depending what you consider a Champions League team, you're considering a team that fights against Real Madrid, that can beat Real Madrid, or a team that can pass the group phase. I don't think there are a lot of changes Lazio have to do. Obviously, you have to keep Milinkovic-Savic, you have to keep the top players. I think, you need to replace De Vrij, unfortunately. So you need a very good defender to replace De Vrij. You need a good striker to help Immobile. And see how Maruzic performs. Otherwise, I think you need another winger.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I agree with all that. And I think perhaps the first thing you said is the most important, which is keeping your key players. So if we can reach the Champions League, it'll all of a sudden become a lot easier to keep Milinkovic-Savic at the club. If we play in the Champions League group stages and he excels there, then things might suddenly become a bit harder in order to keep him. But at the same time, if he excels in the Champions League stage, then his value will, at least be justified in terms of what Latito's likely to ask for him. So, yeah, I think it's crucial to everything, really, in terms of building this club up from what has happened in the last decade or so, which has been having one good season followed by a bad season. Inzaghi's managed to stop that trend and actually keep a level of consistency. So if we can finish this season in the top four, it could be, a pivotal moment in terms of the amount of money that the club can bring in and the quality of players that we can bring in.
There's a question from Ramil Gendi. I know you're going to like to reply. Huge 3 points, big question marks, though, on the terrible performance by probably everyone. And Caicedo, who is turning out to be the worst buy in football history. Surely there is someone more useful than that street high that calls Caicedo.
He's always a ray of positivity. I think, first of all, Caicedo has been much better in his recent games than he has been before, so I want to stand up for him a bit. He's particularly the last two games against Salzburg and Benevento I thought he made a good impact. And you have to remember the guy's really not been given that much of a chance. The fact that he scored 5 goals, you can't really look at his appearances in order to measure that. You have to look at how much time he spent on the pitch. And this actually works out quite well, I think, at about 11 or 12 games. So I think it's a bit much to say he's the worst signing in Lazio's history. And I also think it's a bit much to say that nobody played well today. I think it was the mark of a good team to come away, fight back from behind, and manage to get a win against a pretty motivated-looking team, despite it being a team who were on a bad run.
Yep. I thought he played better in the other matches. Today he was a little bit, don't want to say lazy, but I expected a little bit more, even because he had plenty of space to, punish Udinese. But
I mean, come on, we won the game. I mean, we're in 3rd place. We're in a European quarter-final on Thursday. Let's stay upbeat about this, guys.
No. I, as you said, I don't think that the team played badly. We talk about Milinkovic-Savic. Apart him and Lulic, all the others played pretty well. So that was good. And one of the biggest difference between a big team and a normal team is that big teams win this type of matches, and they, win ugly. They don't have to perform always like Guardiola's Barcelona. They can win even, with 2 shots on targets and then defend 90 minutes. Lazio didn't do like this. They played better than Udinese, I thought. But this is the big difference. You have to win even when you're tired, even when things don't go how you expected and things like that. And that's one step that Lazio has to make to perform and compete at this high level, I think. Ludwig Ivan Mosberg on our Facebook page. Dai Lazio. Now we just have to win 2 games next week. Yeah, it's an easy week next week, right? There's nothing important.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm glad I've got my broadband connection working again. Yes, I mean, it's a huge week. To be able to have the chance within 4 days of reaching a European semi-final for the first time in 15 years and beat Roma to move 3 points clear in 3rd place. I mean, this is what this whole season's been working towards, really, is this week. So, I think the positives are that we don't have suspensions, we don't have serious injury problems. Yes, there's going to be fatigue, tiredness in the squad, but actually when you look at the squad, it's in pretty good shape for this time of the season. So, no reason not to be positive about it. It's massive.
Yes. One thing I wasn't able to talk to you is a lot of press in Italy talked like, okay, the match is not over, Lazio still have to fight against Salzburg. Yes, it's not finished, but Salzburg have to win 2-0 or more, Do we really think Lazio's not going to score or is going to lose with 2 or more goals? I think that Lazio has far more chances than Salzburg, but the Italy press was nearly thinking the other way, giving far more chances to Salzburg than Lazio.
Well, the Italian press also predicted Lazio would finish 9th this season. So
yep, that wasn't bad.
Well, it's. I think it's right to flag up that the tie isn't over. With 2 away goals, Salzburg still have an opportunity there. Incidentally, they actually lost this weekend. I think it was only their 2nd loss all season. So hopefully that's a sign of them being on a bit of a downward spiral rather than it being a one-off. But it won't be easy. I think the one thing we've got to our advantage is simply the amount of goals that this team scores. So yes, we've conceded 2 away goals, but at the same time, it's quite hard to imagine Lazio going into that game and not coming out with at least 1. So it's really up to how well we can defend. I mean, we've not failed to score since the Juventus game at the start of March. And if you look at the last, 3 games now, in the last week or so, we've scored 12 goals in 3 games. So there's so much attacking potential in this team that I think we're more than capable of finding the net. And once we do that, it's going to be quite hard for them to get back into this game. But yeah, I would agree that by no means it's over, but Lazio have to be regarded as big favourites now.
Yeah. And talking about Gazzetta, I mean, I can understand putting Lazio behind Juventus, Milan, Napoli, Roma, Inter, but Fiorentina, Torino, Sampdoria, that's simply embarrassing. That simply makes no sense at all. Anyway, Alexander Mikkelson, I think you're too harsh. I agree we didn't play like we could, but we simply couldn't expect that in all matches, I must say. We got the 3 points, a boost of morale after Salzburg win. I think we were solid and in control. I think after the first 15 minutes in the first half, Lazio controlled the match. We could have finished it. I think Lazio had a couple of chances of breaks in the second half where Lazio could have finished the match and scored the third goal. But I thought probably was one of the match where Lazio was more in control. Udinese had a couple of chances, but that was more personal mistakes than something special. And you have to consider that Felipe Anderson was knackered at the end of the match. So I believe he wasn't the only one. So it's good to get these 3 points, even because you are now 1 point ahead of Inter. You have the same point of Roma. I thought maybe the players felt the pressure of needed to win tonight. So maybe that affected the performance too.
Yeah, I think we've said that. Sorry if that wasn't clear enough, but I think I said right at the start of the show that it is impressive to be able to come away getting absolutely everything you needed from the game. And like you've said, to be able to take the points without being on top of your game. And I also said earlier, I think Lazio controlled the game really well once we took the lead. So I think the start of the game was the most worrying part of it, but then after that, the fact that they managed to respond with 2 goals and then take control of the game is really encouraging. I think perhaps there will be just disappointment among some fans just because it's Udinese who are on such a bad run, and perhaps you expect a bit more, or at least you expect the game to be beyond doubt by the time you're in the last 5 minutes. But yeah, it's a great result, and it's doing exactly what Roma and Inter failed to do this weekend, which is the most crucial part, really.
Yeah. Patrick Bowman, second half was nice. We controlled the game and we got Ciro and Alberto away from the yellow cards. All good. Yeah, we said it. It was one of the key of this match. Try to win and be sure that Ciro and Alberto could play the derby. So Inzaghi did everything well. I'm not sure the starting 11 was the best option we had, but anyway, we won. Now I don't know. Do you play the starters on Thursday against Salzburg, or you do a little bit of turnover?
Every time this question is asked at the moment is so difficult to answer. Because you need a team that's reliable and that'll definitely get the job done. Like I said before, I don't think it's going to be an easy game, and I think you need a lot of composure in that team. So I think certainly we're going to need the likes of Lucas Leiva and Stefan de Vrij starting that match. Marco Parolo would be good to see in the team again. Radu, Lulic. I think the more experienced players we have in the team for a game like that, the better, probably. But I suppose it will have to be assessed in terms of people's fitness as well, because Parolo and Radu are 2 guys who had some injury problems after Thursday. So those are 2 guys I think are absolutely crucial to be in the team for the derby. So if they're not going to manage both games, then I think it's worth resting them for Thursday. But yeah, it's a hard one.
Yeah. I was expecting to see Murgia starting today. I was a little bit surprised of that decision of Simone Inzaghi.
Well, he doesn't seem very willing to give Murgia chances from the start. I mean, to be honest, he doesn't seem very willing to give Murgia chances at all from the bench even. But yeah, I think he likes the idea of having Alberto further back, and it has worked on several occasions, so that's probably what led him to do that. But yeah, I do feel a bit bad for Murgia. I think from this season, which has been such a positive season from the whole way through, more or less, the fact that Murgia's kind of disappeared off the radar a bit has been one of the biggest letdowns, really, so far.
Yeah, it's strange. I mean, he was starting all the match in Europe, and then things changed. I don't know, maybe because Leva started playing so well, and it's always difficult to take out Parolo because he gives great balance to the team. So he's a little bit unlucky there. Addi on Spreaker, great win. I'm now worried a bit because history tells us that the derby winners tends to be the team in the slump. I hope we don't see another Benevento episode against Salzburg. Get too comfortable and throw away our advantage. Given how tired the players were, do you think we should try a measure rotation? The Gennaro style rotation? Well, I don't think the derby, the team in a slump win it. Usually, I think the teams that arrive better to the derby, physically and mentally, is the one that's favored. So at the moment, I don't know who is going to be. I don't know, really. Both of them has very important match this week. So who will arrive? Maybe, if Lazio win, they will have a better moral. But maybe Roma will be a little bit more fresh. I don't know. And I don't think Lazio will have another episode like Benevento against Salzburg. They know it's very important, the match. What's your thought?
Well, I think one thing's for sure, which is that Roma are in a bit of a slump at the moment. They have clearly found it difficult at this stage of the season to be getting the results they want. I suppose it's hard to judge how much of an effect that Barcelona game had on them, because to come away 4-1 losers from that is going to have been quite a sore one for them. And then the Fiorentina game, but it's worth remembering, the Fiorentina match, that's a team on really good form at the moment. Since the tragic death of Davide Astori, they've won every game. So yeah. They're back in the race for Europa League now, so that's not a bad team, and we're going to find that out in about a week and a half's time. So I don't think it's worth reading too much into Roma being terrible from losing to Fiorentina, because they've been a very good side recently.
And to be honest, Roma played much better than Fiorentina. Should have deserved to win, but they made two mistakes on defense and didn't have that killer instinct when attacking. Yeah,
I mean, they're still a very dangerous team. I do think it's obviously better to be approaching a derby being the side in better shape or in better form, obviously. But by no means do I think that's going to have much of an impact on the day itself. I mean, the derby tends to take its own shape and not really... I mean, it's a bit of a cliche to say the form book goes out the window on derby day, but I think anything can happen when it's that atmosphere and the players have been given the extra motivation of the rivalry. So yeah, it's a really tough one to call. I won't be betting on it.
So we talked at the beginning of the show about the surprise of the starting 11, and Inzaghi talked to Sky, and one of the questions was, do you think this type of formation has a future? He said could be. From the beginning, it has been the first time that they play, but if the players give me this willing to play, etc., then it's something we can do. So he changed his mind, it looks like.
Completely contradicting himself.
yeah. And by the way, and we said it, this was probably the worst performance of Milinkovic-Savic. So I didn't see all that willing, all that sacrifice from those key players. Yes, again, Luis Alberto, Felipe Anderson, Immobile, but Milinkovic-Savic didn't play that well. So I think he can find a way to make them play together, especially if Lucas Leiva continue to play that way. But yeah, surprise.
I think in order for that system to work, I think you need to ask one of those two, Alberto or Milinkovic-Savic, to be more of a box-to-box midfielder. And between the two of them, Milinkovic-Savic is the better suited to doing that. But he just wasn't really doing it today. I mean, he tends to saunter around the pitch at his own pace, which is fine when he's playing in a more advanced role or being given that task. But if that system's going to work and find balance, he needs to be, busting along, going one end of the pitch to the other in a way that he wasn't really tonight, and also needs a bit more urgency to his game, because I think he is getting more attention from opposition midfielders and defenders, and he needs to find a way of picking his passes a bit quicker.
Yeah, you're right. Now, he's not a surprise anymore, so people know they have to prepare something to stop him, and he has to step up. He has to improve, and I think it's just a bad, he's still not 100%, and you can see it. He's a very physical player, and so he needs his body to be in top form to allow him to perform that well. I think that's one of the reasons. Before closing, last question from Ramel Gendi. Do you think we can get 22 wins in the season and break our all-time record in Serie A with 7 games to go?
Well, how many are we on now? 18?
Could be.
Hopefully, because that would certainly be enough to secure the Champions League qualification, but it's worth remembering we don't have an easy run in. So a lot of big games still to come. I mean, Roma, Fiorentina, Sampdoria, Torino, Atalanta, Crotone and Inter. So, I mean, in our run-in, there's only one team outside the top 10. So that's by no means an easy feat, but it would, in order for us to reach the Champions League, perhaps that's the kind of thing we're going to have to pull off. We'll wait and see.
Yeah, it's complicated. I think the next 4 matches are going to be very difficult. And let's not forget there's Salzburg this Thursday, then there's the derby on Sunday night, and then we play again on Wednesday against Fiorentina, and then Sunday against Sampdoria. So it's going to be a very busy 2 weeks. And then you have Torino away that could be out of everything. Atalanta at home, again, they could be out of the Europa League spot or maybe already qualified. We have to find out. Crotone could be relegated, and then you give everything against Inter at home. So it's not going to be easy, but yeah, probably Lazio needs to win 4 or 5 matches.
I mean, that game on the last day of the season, Inter at home, it's starting to look like the Serie A organisers knew exactly what was going to happen this season because, I mean, that's has got the potential to be one hell of a way to finish the season.
Well, we hope that we reach the last day and Lazio is already qualified to the Champions League.
We hope so, yeah.
Imagine how funny it would be if Lazio is already in the Champions League spot and Inter is fighting against Roma.
We can only dream, eh?
Yeah, for the moment it's just a dream. Alistair, I think we can wrap it up here.
Okay, for another 4 days at least.
Yeah, very busy. Do you have a stats you forgot, or we can close it?
This one's probably already gone around, but it's worth mentioning anyway. I mean, having already spoken today about how you can read too much into stats and then I go and do some stats, but there you go, contradicting myself like Simone Inzaghi. Ciro Immobile set the record for the most goals scored in a Serie A season today, overtook Pepe Signori with 27, so that's pretty good. And actually Lazio, I mean, Simone Inzaghi beat his own record of goals in a single Serie A season with 75, which beat last season's 74. So there you go, lots of goals. I mean, it's amazing how many goals we've scored this season, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
Keep them coming.
Terrific. Last thing, Inzaghi said that Lulic He's just been hit on the knee after 7 minutes. So we're thinking of taking off, but he wanted to continue, and then at halftime with the doctors, we decided that it was better to take him off. We hope to have him back immediately. So it's just a kick on the knee, probably. So it shouldn't be nothing bad. So he should be able to play on Thursday. So thank you very much, everybody. And one thing important, because we started this project like 1 year ago, nearly end of May, and since then, the numbers of listeners is pretty much the same. So probably there are Lazio fans that we are not reaching. Probably me and Alistair are not very good in promoting our show. So if you're listening, if you find this show nice enough, and a Lazio friend or someone who loves Serie A, just tell them that to listen to this show and promote it to your friends and Serie A fans, and see if they like and they want to listen to our show, so we can grow even bigger and have a bigger community. And tell them that,
and leave us some nice reviews.
Absolutely. Ask for 15 reviews. We still have 9 reviews only on Twitter, on iTunes. Obviously, remember to subscribe on iTunes, on Spreaker, and follow our YouTube channel, please. Do you have something else to add, Alistair?
Can't possibly follow a sign-off like that.
Okay. Thank you, Alistair. Have a nice day, and talk to you on Thursday after Salzburg-Lazio.
Yep. See you then.
Bye.